Okay, so today, next talk, we next day with lots of talks. We have some excellent speakers whole day long. We have some lightning talks just after lunch. These will be 5-minute talks, real fun, real fast. Get one topic out quick. I guess that's. Oh yeah, I really like you all to log in to the app. Download the app, log in, make an account, and then please leave your feedback about all the talks. We would really appreciate that, and most speakers appreciate that as well. Now, if I look around, some of you were still in kindergarten. Others, well, like me, if I look at me, when I was still a bum and most of the day smoking pot and doing nothing, Jaime was already doing pioneering work, high-level pioneering work with some great, and also experimental stuff, experimenting with the stuff that we do nowadays. So back then, must have been really exciting to create stuff, and now it got a little bit more boring, as we saw in Andy's talk yesterday. And maybe as we see, if you look at what she did in the 90s, now she wrote a book. A paper book. She's going to talk about the paper book today, which I think UI experiments is a little bit more exciting than a paper book, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I read yesterday, I was just surfing around on the web, looking at things to say about Jaime today, and I found this comment on her book. And I don't know what it had to do with the book, but it said that the web is siloed and immature. And I thought, okay, that comment is about me. Because yes, I only know things about CSS, and I only know things about nonsense. So yes, that's me. But Jaime's going to talk about UX and business. And I really don't know anything about business. So I'm really looking forward to getting a bit better in that and less siloed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Warm applause for Jaime Levy.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Front-End Conference Zurich, for having me here from Los Angeles. Thank you to all the amazing organizers, Matthias, Adriana, everybody. They've been so warm and making it just really great to adjust to Zurich so quickly. And thank you all for coming. So as mentioned, that's me. You can look me up on the interweb if you want to know more. I'll give you a little bit of background, but before I start, I want to mention that I'm going to be giving away 2 books. My book's UX Strategy for people that know how to use Twitter and tweet photos. It's quite easy. What you do is you take a picture of me with your camera, and then you tweet the photo. You might say, Jaime's a psychopath, or Jaime is talking about UX strategy at #FEC16, at Jaime or Levy, whatever you want. But if I see a ton of them at lunch, I will be giving them to you. And if you would like an autograph, I'd be happy to autograph it. If you want to sell it on Amazon, I won't ruin it for you. And I also have 5 copies to sell for any denomination, any currency for 20. That's my cost. $20, 20 euros, 20 Swiss francs, whatever. I have 5 of them that I don't want to schlep back to LA. So as mentioned, I've been creating innovative digital products for over 25 years. And this is kind of a 30-minute reel going at high speed of 2 minutes, but basically it shows some of my earlier work. And I'm showing it partially because I want to think about like what we heard from Andy Clark and Steve Gaston, because I don't want us to feel scared that the internet is constantly changing, or the web is dead, or the interface is going away. Technology is always going to change, and we have to just accept this as innovators, as product makers, and as entrepreneurs. That's what's great about it. It's for the people who can't handle it, maybe they shouldn't be in this field, because it really requires constantly staying up to date. So, I started with HyperCard, I then moved to Director, I created palaces for some of the first multi-user environments, I created the first web pages for companies like Sony and IBM. I've been doing websites. I've had .coms that were funded. I've blown it with .com, you know, $500,000, gone. I've been through it all long before they called anything what I was doing user experience design. As you can see, I've also had many different colors of hair. And so the real takeaway from this is like what we have is an opportunity to constantly be innovative with content and storytelling, innovative with embracing new technologies and leveraging them in new ways, and just being fearless, because it's going to evolve, and so we want to evolve with it and be okay about it. So I had to evolve. After the dot-com bubble burst and 9/11 happened, I moved back to Los Angeles, where I grew up and worked in one of these ugly postmodern buildings that was an interactive agency. And I had to backwards engineer myself into becoming a UX designer because I had been building sites already for 10 plus years in Photoshop and Dreamweaver, and I didn't need wireframes or sitemaps. I did that stuff in my head. So I created a deck and convinced them that I could do these boxes and arrows. And so I was a senior UX designer, and it was an easy job. It paid well. And so one day they came up to me and they said, "Hey, Jaime, how would you like to try doing the discovery phase?" And I was like, "Yeah, that would be great. What is it?" And they said, "Oh, well, what you'll do is you'll fly out to Chicago with all the other leads, and you'll be basically redesigning the Oprah site." Oprah was still on the air back then, and she had tons of users of her website, but it was a static website, and they wanted to make it dynamic. And there was opportunities for us to leverage the content in new ways. And so we had 1 week to figure out what we could potentially do with the site before we moved into the implementation phase. And so I got to learn a few new tricks, like, for instance, building consensus. And so at the time, we were using something called concept maps, but basically it was like bringing the stakeholders. And if you know anything about Oprah, she's very much like women power. So she had all women working for her. So that's how I figured out I got the gig, because it was all contentious bitches I had to get on the same page. And basically say, "Hey, what's your core content? And here's your business unit. Can you please either move it to the top or move it toward the center so we could all have consensus on what's the most important content for this website?" We did these exercises, took pictures of the diagrams, and as you would, and those were part of the deliverables. Then we wanted to create personas. That was a deliverable. I'd read about personas and ethnography from Alan Cooper, and I knew that it was a lot about going out and talking to customers, talking to users. But they said, "You don't need to do that. We got you covered, Jaime. We've got all this demographic and psychographic data that we've been collecting over the years. We'll just give it to you. You don't need to talk to any of our customers." I was like, okay. So we basically made amalgamations of stereotypes. So we had an African American, a Latina, a Caucasian person, rich, poor, suburban, and all these attributes that were to create this deliverable that I could not make any sense of in terms of how it was relevant to the user experience of the site. Sure, the content could be relevant to these particular stereotypes, but in terms of making it so that anybody could use it, they were irrelevant, and I was very confounded by this way of doing personas without actually talking to customers. And so we turned the brief in, and it was approved immediately, and we are off to the races, creating 120 templates for their new website. It took 6 months. I led a team of 5 UX designers. And this went on and on and on, and it was every 4 weeks we would turn in a set of like the next level of the wires, and the stakeholders went back to fighting over the real estate and what should be in the global navigation. They would fight about colors, all the subjective stuff, and at no time did we ever get to talk to the customers about what they wanted, what kind of features would be interesting to them. At no time did we get to talk to the stakeholders about their business goals, other than that we wanted to put in IAD-sized advertising so they could monetize that. Basically blind to what the business goals of the company was and who the customers were for the website. And so at that point, I realized that the traditional discovery phase for user experience strategy, as they were just starting to call it then, was a farce, and that I didn't want to practice it that way. So I had to read everything there was out there. This was almost 10 years ago about UX strategy, and there was barely anything, So I went to the Rosenfield books. I found Indy Young's Mental Models. In it had this awesome sidebar by the fabulous Jesse James Garrett, where they have this kind of Shakespearean intro paragraph, but then his magic formula: experience equals business strategy plus UX strategy. So I was like, there's the word. What the heck does it mean? I couldn't even figure out what the difference between UX strategy and experience strategy is, but that's another story. So the whole time while I was, my entire career while I've been a product creator, strategist, maker, whatever, I've always been a part-time professor. And I recommend to people who are senior level and up to get out there, do workshops, teach people, help out, mentor, coach, give people an opportunity to work on projects who wouldn't get there otherwise. And I also use teaching as a way to basically hire my A students to work for my company, because it was a training ground. I could see who was great after 15 weeks. So when I moved from teaching from NYU at UCLA to the University of Southern California's graduate level engineering school, they were like, you need a course textbook. And I said, there is no textbook. There is no book on UX strategy. And so that was when I was really inspired to write one. But I didn't want to write a boring tech book. I didn't want to write a boring pop business book. I didn't want to write a course book, but I knew I wanted to write something that could be used by UX designers, engineers, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and was fun to read, but really told the ups and downs of what it is to make products, what it is, the pain that we go through when we strategize, like what it could be when we deal with stakeholders who have psychotic ideas and how to deal with them, and then come up with the rest of the chapters after you get past 2 are just technique after technique that are all lightweight, that can be practiced with or without the approval of your stakeholder, so that you can learn about what is the right business strategy for my product, who are my customers, and learn about lots of different techniques that are basically based on a framework that I came. So these are the 4 tenets of my UX strategy framework, and I'll explain them in a couple of different ways. Why they're looking like plates on the table is because I'm a foodie. That's my dining table in Los Angeles, and I want you to think of them not as like a boring Venn diagram, but as 4 plates that you want to eat off of. That there's basically these 4 tenets. Think of them a tenet like 4 chairs of a table, and if you took one of the legs off, the table would collapse. They all need to be practiced. It's not this thing that you just do a week before and then boom, you go into implementation phase. It's something that you practice throughout the entire, before you start building the product and while you're building the product and while you're scaling the product. And I'll explain what I mean by all of these. First, let me give a quick case study. I'm assuming that a lot of you have heard of Airbnb, company based out of San Francisco. I'm staying in a great Airbnb here in Zurich. It's been awesome. And so let's go back in time now to 2012. And let's pretend that you wanted to go to Venice and Los Angeles and stay in an apartment by the beach, right? So you might go to Craigslist Los Angeles, you might click on sublets, and then you'd get this awesome ad with all this great information. And you could see the pretty picture, and you could see, oh, I'll text Chantel, don't text her, actually, she'll kill you. Call her and send her a couple grand, and I'm sure when you get there, maybe, that this apartment will be there. Or maybe you'll go out swimming in the dirty beach, and when you come back, your wallet and your passport will be gone. Or maybe from Chantel's perspective, you're the freaks, and you'll get to her awesome apartment and trash it. Basically, Craigslist is a great free listing site, but it lacks a few things to really make transactions very safe. So now let's contrast this with Airbnb, right? We type in Venice, We type in the dates, and we get a very beautiful hybrid search/browse result set. They borrow from many different pattern libraries, such as the Yelp map, where you can zoom in. Let's say you want to live on, stay really close to the beach. They use the kayak for the pricing, so you could have live results updated based on what your budget is. And you could quickly see what are the different places that you could see. Really beautiful UX design, even now that is 4 years old. Then you pick a place. I found this one. This was the first one I ever stayed in. $110 because I was up for the launch conference in SF. It was a really great price. And so I looked at these people renting the place. I looked at all these beautiful photos, and I was like, can I trust these guys? I mean, look at them. They're kind of scary. He's a retired attorney, and she's an art collector. You know, they look like they're going to kill me. They have 47 reviews. I could read all of them and learn all about them, but I thought, heck, it's worth the risk. How bad could they be? They checked me out. They see, you know, I'm a college professor, internet professional. I've got a cat. How bad can I be? And so the transaction was seamless. Ka-chink, ka-chink. The money went into the bank. I went up there and stayed in this awesome apartment, and it was completely frictionless. So let's think about the 4 tenets now. So business strategy is basically our goal when we start a business or when we work for an existing company and create a new product is we want to slaughter our competitors, all right, if we want to win big. So at that point, they needed to slaughter the hotel industry, which they have definitely had an effect on. They wanted to come up with something safer and better than Craigslist. And then the only direct competitor was VRBO and HomeAway, which was basically, they bought each other, but they didn't offer a transaction system, and the inventory, it was very limited. And so they knew that this was an opportunity to kill the competition. And so now let's talk about value innovation. So most people think about the value innovation of Airbnb as, oh, I can stay in a place cheaper than a hotel, but also I can have a kitchen, I can be where the hipsters or the locals are, I can have a real life experience like I am staying in a 500-old building, it's really cool. But there's also value innovation for the other side of a market. What's happening now, which I think is really exciting, and these are the jobs I tend to gravitate toward, are ones that have two-sided markets where you have totally two different customer segments, and they both are needing a completely different user experience for the product to work. We're basically erasing the middleman. That's what's really happening when we look at a lot of the products out there. And so in this case, the value innovation is that I was able to start making money off my house, off my guest house, off my studio, so that I could rent out these properties, and I have a 11-year-old, so I don't want crazy people on my property. I want them to stay for a few months. I want to be able to check them out. And so it provided me the income for the year and a half it took to write this book. It was very challenging. And so the value innovation, it means to create a leap in value for customers. They created a new revenue stream for me. And so validated user research. Airbnb just didn't come out of San Francisco and blast onto the scene worldwide, just like Facebook didn't do that either, right? They started small and then they scaled. So Airbnb, first they tried it in their apartment, the founders, who by the way happened to be designers, and then they were like, we need to do this for real. And so they tested it out in Denver where Obama was coming, and they knew that there was a convention and not enough apartments to allow for all the people coming. And so they onboarded all of these different people that were coming to town onto this not even finished platform, and they basically learned from this user research what went right, what went wrong, so they could see if they actually could have a business model, could have a feasible value proposition, and then take it back to, it turned out to be Y Combinator that gave them the funding, and now, of course, Airbnb is what it is today. But a real part of what Airbnb is and why we love it and why we're addicted to it is because it's frictionless. It's so darn easy that my 80-year-old dad is using this thing. And that's how products, that's what killer UX means to me. That somebody doesn't have to sit there and try to figure something out. I think I spent like 10 minutes yesterday trying to get Slack to work. I'm sure a lot of you think it's easy, but I've used it before and I hated it then and I hated it now. It's not that easy. There's other products out there where I should be able to just start using them instantly. So what we want to do is try to create, especially when it's for a consumer marketplace that's going to be for young people, old people, we want to make them frictionless. That's what killer UX design is. Frictionless and addictive so that the cost of switching from doing whatever their behavior was before is worth the risk of trying something new. Because basically, once you try Airbnb once, it's hard to kind of go back to Craigslist for subletting or staying in an expensive hotel when you know you might be staying somewhere for longer. And of course, this is what winning looks like when you have a successful platform that really kicks the butt of the competitors. I don't know what's up with the flashing, but I'll ignore it. So the business strategy tenet at its core is it's the plans, choices, and decisions that are used to guide a company to greater profitability and success. In a nutshell, that's what business strategy is. And so if we go back in time and look at some of like what the books published by all the Harvard Business School professors, one of the classic ones is this one by Michael Porter. He talks about a lot of different theories, but the two most common ways he identifies for achieving a competitive advantage is first, cost leadership, right? And this is basically trying to offer the lowest prices so that the customers come to you, right? So that like you offer, if the hamburger before McDonald's was around was $1.50 and took 10 minutes to make, and all of a sudden McDonald's is making it for 99 cents and it takes 2 minutes, that's awesome, right? But ultimately, it can become a race to the bottom. How many people eat at McDonald's in this room? Or Burger King? That's good, because I don't want you to die. Because basically what they're serving to us is really, really, really low-grade meat that is not healthy for us, and it's truly a race to the bottom, and a life or death decision sometimes using some of these fast food. This is a brick and mortar example. But let's contrast that with differentiation. Because as we know, as product makers, there's so many products that we create that are actually free, right? I don't know about you, but I use Facebook for free. I think they should pay me, obviously, if you heard me yesterday. YouTube for free. I think they should pay me as well. I use Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, you name it, you got it. Most of the products are free. So they have other ways to monetize it, but like, how do you win if your app or your platform is free? So I think the way we win as product makers is through differentiation. We need to be a lot better than the competitors. And I love, just to contrast that with McDonald's, is Starbucks. By the way, this is a Swiss Starbucks. Because before Howard Schultz had his aha moment in Milan where he learned about European cafe culture, instant coffee or bodega coffee or going to McDonald's for a cup of coffee was the standard in America. We didn't care, we just wanted our coffee and we went on with our day. Now, what Howard Schultz did is he turned it into a customer experience, something where you walk into this beautiful, well-designed restaurant or cafe, you smell the roasted beans, people take your name, you can pay $5 for a frappuccino, you can sit down and use their free internet, you can listen to their bad indie music, it's awesome, right? So that's the differentiation, but we're willing to pay for that. That's why we pay sometimes more for something, because it's a better experience. Experience. Did you hear that word? So when we try to think about these things, what are we really talking about when we're talking about product strategy, UX strategy? We're talking about two things. What is the value proposition? A value proposition is the promise of value to be delivered and a belief from the customer that the value will be experienced. I like to give these two examples from Apple. Some of you may not be old enough, lucky, to remember the Newton. I bought one of those. At that time, it was $700, which with inflation is $1,400, because I wanted to be the chick that could send an email from Central Park. And instead, I got this kludgy, little, weird, boxy thing that did not recognize my handwriting, and I had to connect about 16 things to it to send an email, and within 2 months, it was in my junk pile. It was not ready to ship. It did not deliver on its value proposition. That was 1993. That was one of the first personal digital assistants. Now let's fast forward, right? And we are paying $600 to $800 converted. It's about the same for our iPhone 6, and the promise of value is truly experienced. I know, and I know Androids are great too. Of course, they copycatted this, but the point is that they set a precedent for, I don't even know why they call it a phone. I don't see too many people talking on it anymore. It's basically replaced the computer. It's taken over the market. We know that we can use it for email, surfing the web, maps, connecting with friends, getting dates, pretty much, downloading apps that are free, of course, and that proposition is extremely enticing. I bet if I was to come up to you and say, give me one, your wallet or your phone, you'd probably give me your wallet. You'd say, I could replace that, but don't take my phone. I can't take an Uber. It's just a really, really addictive experience because of not only what the phone does, but what all these apps, that open platform they provided for us so that product makers can create these experiences. The second part about business strategy is understanding the business model. And this could take hours to explain, and I highly recommend reading Alex Osterwalder's Business Model Generation. I think he's a Swiss guy, isn't he? Or Austrian? Anyway, you'll learn about all these different parts that make up a business model. But if you're a product maker, I think it's really important to learn the language of business. It makes you more powerful because then you can deal with your marketing people, your stakeholders. You can quickly advance up the corporate ladder because you understand things like revenue streams and cost structure and customer relationships and all of these things that are really important. I didn't want to be a manager of UX teams. I didn't want to be a VP. I wanted to be the person who's in charge of product definition. And so what that entailed was me really understanding how to create products that, A, reach the customer, and B, would ultimately be able to be monetizable. So to do that, one of the techniques, chapters 3 and 4, and these ones are pretty thick, is how to do competitive research and analysis. If we don't do competitive research and analysis, we're like the mythical ostrich. We're sticking our head in the dirt, and we're going like, I don't want to know what's out there. I'm sure whatever I thought of in my ideation Aeron chair is awesomer. No, we need to know what's out there, because what's out there is our direct competitors, our indirect competitors, and tons of data that will basically allow us to know who are our direct competitors, who are the threats, and then also look at indirect competitors, because there's going to be golden nuggets of ideas that we can parallel and pull into our concept to make something truly unique. We can also look at UX influencers. And so I think it's really important to truly understand the marketplace. And this is an ongoing activity. If you don't, you're an ostrich. So another thing that I think is really important is understanding that digital value propositions, the ones that really make a mark, are ones that offer new mental models. Going back to Indy's book, what's a mental model? She's got a whole book to explain it, but I boiled it down to a couple of sentences. Mental models are the steps that we think that we need to take to get something done, right? And these things change over time as business processes change, as new technologies change. And so we're basically talking about coming up with new ways, and we're trying to get our customers to say, hey, let's do something different. For instance, hitchhiking, right? In America, hitchhiking is dangerous. You don't want to pick up this hoodie guy and put him in your car, nor do you want to be the hoodie guy necessarily and getting into strangers' cars. Bad things can happen. But then all of a sudden we have this interface called Uber. And all of a sudden now everybody is hitchhiking all over the world. It's crazy. They just push a button, immediacy, and we see how long it's going to take for the driver to get there. Now we know exactly what it's going to cost. And all of a sudden, Grandpa shows up and picks us up. And I'm not trying to use, he is a grandpa. I interviewed him. Very nice guy. And I asked him, hey, what are you doing driving your car around San Francisco? He's like, well, I retired, but I was just bored, and I really wanted an additional revenue stream, and I had this car, and it's fun, and I get to meet people. I love talking to people, and I've interviewed Uber drivers literally all over the world. I wish Uber would pay the money and not be yet another greedy Silicon Valley company, but that's another story. But basically what Uber did is they changed the mental model of hitchhiking. It's not taxi services. It's basically we are getting into strangers' cars and having them take us from point A to point B, or they created a new market for people who couldn't find jobs, like the chick that took me to LAX 2 days ago and was holding the phone the whole time, lost, so that she could make money all of a sudden while she's a part-time student and become a driver. And that's value innovation. Uber is darn simple, right? And this is accomplished by creating a product that doesn't have 100 features, but just the right ones. Think about it like a salad. 10 ingredients doesn't make a salad better, but 3 really fresh ingredients can make a wonderful salad. And so we need to focus on what are the primary use cases, what are the fewest amount of features that we can put in this product so that somebody can get their task done without being overwhelmed by a cluttered interface and too many features. I got the idea of value innovation by reading this book called Blue Ocean Strategy. Came out in 2005, and it's got over 100 case studies of businesses that created they basically created value innovation for an uncontested marketplace. It's called Blue Ocean because it's the idea that you can create a new product or an extension of a product and swim out into a blue ocean where the competition isn't all over around you throwing McDonald's hamburgers at you. Instead, as opposed to a red ocean that's full of sharks and bloody and biting at your feet, right? We want to have room to grow, and we want to be unique. And so that's what this book is about. Essentially, one of their big things is, and it's like kind of taking Porter's idea of low cost and differentiation, combining them together so we have this diamond in the middle. And the value innovation is what's core. If we're creating products that are innovative, that create new mental models, we need to have some aspects of them that really change the world for the better, make it easier for us to live our lives. So these are just some of the many examples of companies that changed the way that people did things with the products and created new marketplaces, created new opportunities for people, created different mental models for how people perceived everything from how they would shave to how they would purchase wine and so forth. So for me, value innovation for digital products is ultimately cherry picking some of the greatest ideas from different products and cobbling them together in unique ways. I give a few examples, but basically, like, one of my favorite ones is Eventbrite, where they take, like, if you think about Meetup, they didn't for a long time allow you to charge a ticket price. But what if you just want to produce a one-off event? Or you Ticketmaster? That's what they call in the States. So we would have this idea that I could produce a lecture event or a series of lecture events, charge a ticket price, and be able to have people show up and do workshops. It's changed my life. It's created a new revenue stream, and it's created an opportunity for people to be able to attend events. Do you like the blinking? It's kind of like tripping you out. Let's just ignore it. Let's pretend it's not bothering us. So then another thing is transcending a value proposition. It's this idea, like, who would want to compete with Google Maps, right? Like, Google Maps is it's very expensive to have mapping, right? that we don't want to create all the different data that tells us the different routes that are the shortest cuts through the city. Then all of a sudden comes an Israeli company called Waze that says, hey, I'm going to have these people actively, whether they have their app open or closed, being able to show if there's a car on fire on the street, alerts so that people can know the quickest way through the city. So now I use Waze to basically shortcut my way through LA, and it cuts the time down by about half. And Vine, I can go on, but all these apps are basically simplifying the way that we do things in new ways. Instead of just like, oh, I'm going to accept what a big pain in the butt it is to put a video up on YouTube and tag it and share it with grandma. They simplified the process. Validated user research is this idea that you want to be able to look at user research and stop thinking about it as, oh, I'm going to learn about my customer, I'm going to develop empathy for them, and I'm going to do contextual inquiries, and then go back and take all my journals and describe and transcribe them, and voila, there's my user research. No, this idea of validation is absolutely crucial at this point because it's so competitive, the marketplace. I swiped that idea from Mr. Eric Rieslin's startup, who most of his book is about getting validated user research, getting validated learnings. And of course, we all have heard the term MVP, but it's basically this idea of build, measure, learn. Now, I transpose it to strategy, right? Because I'm not building products anymore. I haven't done wireframes for so many years. I'm pretty much doing business strategy and working with startup clients, trying to figure it out, making the least amount of product, whether it be a landing page, whether it be an ad on Google that just has a value prop, or Facebook, or whether it be doing prototypes that we can put in front of customers. But you want to come up with the value proposition of the idea, build it, get that product in front of people, measure the feedback, and learn from it. And then you can pivot or keep moving forward. But this idea is absolutely crucial for basically learning about our products. Now, that dude didn't make it up either. He swiped it from these guys. So Steve Blank, who's one of my heroes, who's a professor at Berkeley and Stanford and a very successful entrepreneur, wrote the book 4 Steps to the Epiphany, which is about customer discovery and customer acquisition. Now, Alan Cooper, for the interaction designers who call themselves interaction designers and haven't read any of his books, try reading them. He coined the phrase, but basically, Alan Cooper really pushed on ethnography, and it's this idea that we really want to understand the people that use our products. But he realized that people, like in the Oprah experience, were bastardizing the personas, and so he came up with this idea of the provisional persona, one where you just quickly make in 20 minutes, and that we validate as soon as possible by doing customer interviews. So we stop doing traditional user research and start looking at our products, not as products, but as experiments. And we need to validate or invalidate, probably invalidate, that we are actually making something that nobody wants, or maybe people really want, by trying to figure out not if we have the right solution, but who is this customer and what is the problem they're trying to have. This is a slide from one of my student decks, but basically I have them prototype, and then I have them go out and talk to customers and show, first not pitch, but first talk to them about the problem, understand if they have the right customer, and then find out, do they want the value proposition, and how much would they pay for it, so we can validate the business model without building anything. This is what I teach designers, and this is through one of my techniques called guerrilla user research, where instead of sitting in a usability lab like a guinea pig, that we're actually in a cafe, we show them a prototype that's a proof of concept, we show key features that basically show off the value innovation of the product that makes it unique, and try to have price transparency. So, for Airbnb for weddings, it was like, you're going to pay $80,000. We've got the cost down to $6,000 if you are open to Zankou chicken and having it in a stranger's house, and trying to really figure out, like, is this something that people are open to? So ultimately, we want to take our prototype solutions, put them in front of our hypothesized customers, And when I'm working with startups, we want to have the stakeholder sitting there, not behind a two-way mirror, not reading transcripts or looking at our spreadsheets, but actually sitting there in front of the customer. Now, he's got his hand over his mouth, the engineer, because he's about to throw up, because we have customer after customer telling him his hypothesis, why they would not use his platform, because he wasn't directly talking to his hypothesized customers. He just built $1 million website and nobody signed up. And until we did a day of interviews in a cafe that we paid nothing for but a bunch of coffee, he learned his lessons. He took notes. I said, shut your pie hole, no questions. This needs to be structured like an experiment. And we barely need to debrief at the end because he was sitting there the entire time and he really got face to face with the customers. And so you might be thinking, but Jaime, there's no way my boss is going to let me do it. I work at an enterprise or I work at an agency. So I say to you, don't be a pussy. I mean a kitty, right? Kitty, all right? Kitties are cute, right? But they're not scary, right? We want to not wait for permission. We want to be entrepreneurial, all right? If we're not starting our own product, don't tell me you don't have an evening or a weekend to go out and do customer research. Don't tell me you don't have a weekend or an evening to do competitive research, okay? It should just be part, as someone who's curious about making products that will succeed in the marketplace, it should be something that we do no matter what. So, and another thing I do is A/B testing. And typically, I'll have landing pages or no landing pages. I'll just run ads on Google or Facebook with the value proposition and check the CTR and see if people are responding to the different messages and photos without building anything. I do this all the time for customers. Killer UX design, we're going to go through this in 1 minute because we all know what it is. I use killer because I'm from California. It's like killer, dude. So it means better than just mediocre UX design. Mediocre UX design or bad UX design is not acceptable. It's certainly not acceptable in the States, okay? Things have to be easy to use and well designed. That's the bottom line. We've had the web now for 20 years. It's about time that we make things that have as few steps as possible and just the right amount of features. And so people enjoy using them. And so to me, I don't approach things from, I'm going to make a site map or an app map. I think about getting people down my product's funnel. I think of the stages of acquisition. A buzzword in the States is growth hacking. But basically, I growth hack almost everything. Not just products, but how I get things, how I try to figure things out. Like, what do I need to do to get this or get this done? And so there's different stages of acquisition. You can Google these product funnels. All the marketing people are familiar. There's different funnels depending on what your business model is. But we want to get people to our app, to our product, to download it, to create a profile, to start using it, and then to be advocates and share it, to do in-product marketing, and to turn our users into revenue, okay? Any feature, any use case that is not in line with our funnel should be phase 2. That's how I approach it. So let's look at products that do it, that get us down the funnel, right? Ways, open it up, say where you want to go. It suggests the maps. It shows you the route. I'm like, okay, there it is. Oopsie, halfway there, there's a pig. Better hide the phone. Great. I get to ballet in 30 minutes or less. Uber, we already talked about that. You click the button, tells you the cost, tells you how long it's going to take on the road there. Tells you the guy who's going to pick you up, so it's trustworthy. You barely get out of the car. You don't even need your wallet, and you got your receipt. It's immediacy. And then we think about Tinder. Traditionally, dating sites were all about filling out profiles, eHarmony, Match, OkCupid. If I ever read this question again from another stupid guy, what are the 5 things you can't live without? And he says air, I'm going to say, I'm going to take all your air away and strangle you, because I don't need to know that. What I would like to know is, are you attractive? Do you think I'm attractive? And then let's start having a conversation. It's basically taking this idea of, and I know it's a hookup site, but I've had plenty of dates on this that didn't have full conversion. So you can actually use it for dating, it's true. So the idea here is that they turned it kind of into a game. They've commodified us as individuals, but they've made it so, yeah, he's cute, he's not cute, or whatever. But immediately, we can get into plan making. So if I want to meet, because I don't have people I know, and I'm touring the world, and I tell people I'm looking for people who want to hang out and show me the town. They'll have a 0.002% chance of casual sex, just to leave it on the table. And then, of course, they won't get it. And then I can meet them. And it's a great way to meet people quickly, because I don't want to fill out a profile, nor do I want to read people's lives on their profile. So, in final, killer UX design equals better conversion. We want to have happy customers, and we want to be able to monetize them. So what are the takeaways? A unique, kick-ass user experience aligned with the right business model can define a disruptive product, and it helps the entire team and the stakeholders reach a shared product vision for greater efficiency. We want to bring the stakeholders and all of our teams, they call it balanced teams, together, marketing, developers, everybody, so that to work on the competitive analysis, to be part of the research, so that we're all on the same page. You want alignment. We want to stop this siloed way of working. We're all capable of doing strategy. And then finally, by doing everything you can to validate your UX strategy, you reduce the risk of making products that nobody wants. And the reason is because life is supposedly short, and our existence is what you make of it. So I encourage you to try to spend your time with our awesome lives making products that make you happy, that make the world a better place. If it goes to the next screen, which it might. Thank you so much, everybody.
Wow, thanks. That was absolutely a great talk. I learned a lot. I should probably buy a book or post a picture.
Got 5 books for sale, so grab them soon.
Are there any questions? I see a question over there.
Yeah, what's the difference between UX and UI?
The difference between UX and UI.
What?
A letter. Anything else?
Very, very clever.
Come on, you guys. Give me something tough. Come on. I've been doing this 30 years. I can handle it.
There's a question over there.
I have a question. You said in the beginning, one of the first things you learned when you got into that was creating consensus among a lot of stakeholders that are very opinionated. Can you share a few tips out how to do that?
Definitely. I wish this would stop flicking, but we can stop it. Let's just ignore it. It's so stupid. And by the way, you can get the user experience toolkit it's free. Just go to the website and download it and connect with me on LinkedIn and follow me on Twitter. I forgot to say that. So it's building consensus. Like the big secret, it's manipulation, right? The reason I have the jackal on the cover, they gave me a lot of like wussy covers, like birds, and I'm like, no, I don't want a bird, because you have to be inquisitive, objective, and fearless. And so you need to be manipulative as well, right? Jackal can kill animals 4 times its size. We need to be able to deal with stakeholders who have a higher status than us in most cases, and they don't want to hear from us our opinions, even if we know more than them. A lot of times I have more experience than them, but I can't say I'm right, you're wrong. And so we need to hear them out, but that's why I feel like bringing them into the equation by saying, I'd like you to participate and help us out, and then showing them the evidence. When I show them, what I typically do, if they don't let me do a competitive analysis, I'll do it. I'll show them this amazing spreadsheet, and I'll say, so what do you think of this? What do you think? You know, like they'll see the analysis section. And then all of a sudden, it's their idea, right? You let them have credit of their idea. It's great. And then they take your idea, and you get what you want anyway, which is what we want. We don't always need to get credit. but you need to like really, they need to come to understand the idea on their own. And they need to be aware, like I had one, guy who had a very successful blockbuster movie, so he thought he knew everything, so thus he could invent a new app. And I said, his mental model, what he told me, his value prop, I was like, there's like 8 guys doing this. And he was like, you're fired, Like, I was like, you can't tell me that. And I'm like, well, you can't fire me, you already paid me, I'm a consultant, that's fine. But, 2 weeks later, I got an email from his wife saying, thank you, you just saved our kids' college funds, Some people won't listen, but other ones, if you involve them in the process and it's not about you're wrong and I'm right, but you show them, here's what I'm doing. Please come to the research. We're talking to these customers, and not through video, but have them directly there, hearing from the horse's mouth. This is what people think. Then they can become more empathetical and they can become more realistic in their ideas.
So getting consensus is getting people to do what you want, right?
Through manipulation in a very nice, subtle way.
Okay, good.
Using empirical data.
Okay, I think we have room for one more question. You can pick. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for that talk. I'm a bit confused though, because the question that popped into my head was basically when you talked about business strategy, you mentioned blue ocean. So now I'm thinking, so does this all apply only for blue ocean situations or not? Is there only a UX strategy for blue ocean type of business opportunities?
No, that's an excellent question, and I talk about this in the book. We don't want to go into red oceans, right? Because that's just too competitive. If there's 3 companies that are making the exact same product, and they already have, let's say, first advantage because they're there first, we want to go away from that. And blue oceans, there's a lot of risks. That's called disruptive innovation. But what if you combine blue with red? What color do you get? Purple oceans are awesome, right? That's where we can go if we work in agencies or in enterprises, is we find ones that are, I see some opportunity. These guys are doing a little bit of my value proposition, but I'm going to change the revenue model. Or I'm going to pivot on this sort of thing. But ultimately, blue ocean's the goal. But the reason, like Henry Ford had a blue ocean because he basically saw cars were too expensive. Let's make them $850 so everybody could do that. But to get that, he had to create the assembly line. And so it's kind of like changing the business process like Uber had to do. And those are super risky. There's so few Airbnbs and ways, but there is a lot of opportunity, what's called sustaining innovation, and that's the purple ocean. It's a great question, though.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
very, very much.
Yay.
Jaime Levy.